Genetics. If you have a shitty genetics,
I think I have decent genetics.
You would not think this guy is a genetic freak.
I'm gonna train legs today, but while I'm training legs, we're gonna talk about genetics versus hard work. Let's understand what genetics actually are, and we're all affected by it. It's basically the makeup of who you are today. Your skin color, your hair type, the way you're built, the length of your bones, how tall you are, how big you are. That's the set point of what you're given when you're born. Now, how does that really determine your success in your own personal growth in terms of building muscle or creating the physique that you want to create? Well, I think we all have the ability to work hard, and we all have our genetic predispositions. We can't let that be the end all be all in terms of how well we do in our own personal goals and our personal journey. Genetics, let's just talk genetics really quick. And I'll give my own personal experience to myself. I wasn't overly the fastest person in a straight line, but I was really fast laterally. I wasn't always the tallest person. I was short and stocky, so I had to use what I was born with to go as far as I could. So when I was playing football, I had a certain set of skills that I was really good at. And I learned quickly that I can only use those skills as much as I could to get as far as needed to go. I wasn't gonna be the fastest person, I wasn't gonna be the tallest person, but there's one thing I did have. I had a crazy work ethic. I think that's the thing that people misunderstand or overlook. We put too much emphasis on genetics. We're always looking at someone on Instagram or TikTok, and we're looking at these amazing physiques, and we're comparing ourselves to these ultra superior genetically gifted athletes, and then we're discouraged because we don't look just like them. The thing we have to understand is that, and that's when the whole body positivity comes into play, because accepting what you're given at birth and using what you have, basically playing with the cards that you're dealt, and loving that and loving the journey is what's going to give you the ultimate amount of happiness. But those things are going to set a trajectory based on how hard you're going to work. Now, the question sometimes is hard work part of genetics? Can be, but when it comes down to it, can genetics beat hard work? Well, we have the argument of genetics overplays hard work, but when genetics works hard, it's the ultimate combination. Now, don't be discouraged. Just because you can't build muscle as fast as somebody else doesn't mean you can't build muscle. And just because it's taking you a little longer to burn off fat doesn't mean you can't burn fat. All those things that you want to do, building muscle, burning fat, it takes work. No one's exempt from the law of thermodynamics. If you eat too much food, you put on too much weight. So if you want to lose fat, you have to eat less food and do more activity. How that ends up is based on what your body will give you in the very end. You might not have the chest like Chris Bumstead, but you can build an amazing chest for yourself. You might not have the best arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you could definitely make your biceps bigger. They will look just like they're supposed to look based on the genetics that you are given. But don't ever let genetics be the thing that's gonna stop you from working hard, because there's a lot of people who are not in the NBA right now who are probably better than LeBron James. They just didn't have the work ethic. That's a big difference. We can all get to our ultimate goals individually if we work really hard. Don't let genetics be your excuse of why you can't get to where you need to go. So when we're thinking about genetics and just overall athletic performance, it's very obvious there. And we have to understand, like, genetics isn't this one, size fits all thing. It's not like one person genetically gifted with all the genetics in the world. Some people have certain areas where they're better than others. So for instance, I have really strong legs, but I can squat a lot. But no matter how much I try, my bench press is very strong, but it's not gonna be a world-class, powerlifting bench record. I just don't have that makeup. I'm a fast twitch fiber person. I'm quick. I can run fast, but when it comes to long distance, that's just not in my cards. So we have to understand that even yourself, you might have something that you're very good at in terms of athletic performance. You might have better hand-eye coordination for a certain sport, or let's say the individual who's born and ends up being 6 foot plus. That person will play those sports that require you to be taller, longer, rangier. as opposed to someone like myself who is only 5'8". Well, it kind of limits me to certain sports that I'll be able to play. So when I think about that, in terms of what I choose to do, I chose football. It made the most sense for me. I enjoyed it, and I fit into that class of athletes fairly well. So when you're looking at athletic performance, it plays a massive role in terms of how far you can go in that sport. Now, while you're there, just because you're not the best of the best, it doesn't mean that you can't work a little harder to get to where you need to go. So there's a lot of guys or girls on certain athletic teams that might not get that much playing time. But you have that, you have those few people on the team that work their butts off, and they're like a team player, they're a gamer, and they end up playing and they end up doing really, really well. That's where you have to look at hard work and genetics. Not everybody's gonna be the best on the team, but your role in the team is gonna play significance in the success of the overall team, or just in the success of you individually. So understand that it's not about whether or not you have all the genetics. You just have to find the one that you're good at and exploit that. Make sure you're in an environment that lets you showcase those genetics, so to speak. Does that make sense? So put it this way, if you're really fast and you can go this way really quick for a very long time, maybe you want to do something like track and field, the 200 or 400 meter dash. For me, I can't do anything more than 200 meters. I tried it before. I remember my coach asked if I could do the 400 meter because one of our team players, they couldn't do it. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. As soon as I passed 200 meters, I could not pick up my legs. I just wasn't fit or equipped to run like that. I'm a very fast twitch fiber person, which means I'm very quick. I'm very anaerobic, means I'm very start-stop heavy. I'm not a person that can run for a long period of time. I can sit on a treadmill for an hour, but I can't actually go outside and run for that long. Now, I can work my butt off every single day and try to increase my overall time, as in terms of like running 5 minutes more, or 10 minutes more, or maybe a couple kilometers longer. But will I ever be a world-class long distance runner? Probably not. But the takeaway from that is I end up being a better overall long distance runner for myself. And then I get to reap the benefits of pushing my body to limits that I probably didn't think I could push myself to by just working that much harder. Let's talk like genetics and your success in terms of like nutrition. Some people are born with, predispositions, allergies to certain foods. So they literally can't eat a certain type of food group. Does that mean that they cannot diet? No. It just means that they have to find a way and adjust their lifestyle to be able to achieve what they need to achieve through the nutrition. We can say that, oh, I'm allergic to this, I have celiac, and I can no longer get lean. Well, that's a lie, because getting leaner, losing fat, is just training harder, training longer, and eating less. Now, there's also the argument in that case of building muscle. There's some people out there who can literally come to the gym, do a couple bicep curls, squat, and you see them just blow right up. Their body responds to athletic training or resistance loads very, very easily. They have that advantage. But their disadvantage could be that it's really hard for them to diet. They might find it very hard for them to stick to a diet or to eat less food, where the person who might have a little bit of an ailment to, maybe say they have celiac disease or they're lactose intolerant. Maybe that person isn't that good at putting on muscle very quickly, but they can definitely stay lean because they have the self-discipline to be able to put the fork down. There's so many differences in genetics that we can use to our advantage and not use as an excuse or a crutch. Look at someone like Jay Cutler, for instance. Now you guys are thinking, he's massive, he's huge. Well, Jay Cutler just throw in a guy like Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman is probably one of the most genetically gifted bodybuilders there is. Is Jay Cutler's structure better than Ronnie Coleman's? Not at all. What made the difference is a few shows that Ronnie did and a few shows that Jay did, Jay worked that much harder. He took what he has, even though he's not genetically as superior as Ronnie Coleman, and he was able to get leaner, to add the little bit extra muscle where you need to add that muscle, to probably sit in the gym a little longer, on the chum a little longer. He probably had the will to win that much greater, and then he ended up being victorious. Now I know that's a very extreme case, but you have to look at that as like in yourself. How many times have you been next to somebody who's probably been genetically gifted more than you, but you have the ability to sit on the treadmill a little longer. You have that like fire inside you that lets you sit there for as long, like I'm the kind of person who could out cardio anybody. I can sit in the cardio machine for as long as I possibly can because I have that will to win. That might be your genetic predisposition. That chip on your shoulder that makes you work no matter what. And that's what we have to understand. Genetics get you this far, hard work is gonna push you even further. What can you do to make sure you're maximizing your potential, your genetic predisposition? Like I said earlier, no one is exempt from the law of thermodynamics. If I want to get leaner, I have to make sure that I adhere to my diet, to my nutrition. If you have a certain allergy to a food type, you have to customize your nutrition to fit your lifestyle. You have to customize your training to fit your overall body type. If you're someone who has, say, smaller shoulders, then maybe you're gonna have a plan that's gonna emphasize more shoulders. When it comes to your overall health, wellness, strength, aesthetics, you wanna make sure that we have something that's tailored to you, that's customized for you, that's individually based for you. Because in the end, it's what you can do on an individual level, not what everybody else can do. Stay in your lane and make sure that you can control the things that you can control within your life, your nutrition, your training, your cardio, mobility, seeing maybe a massage therapist or a chiropractor to make sure that you continue these things so you can stay healthy the entire time. Because in the end, it's how hard you work with a good strategy and consistency that's gonna bring you to your ultimate goal, to your maximum potential. And that's all we're trying to do. No matter what genetics you're given, no matter what you're born with, you work your butt up with the cards you're dealt, and you enjoy the process, and you accept that, and you continue that for the rest of your life. Don't let genetics be the roadblock for you. Just because you don't look like your favorite influencer does not mean that you can't look the best that you can look and live the healthiest life that you can live. Remember that. I find your strongest attribute in the whole grand scheme of things will be your mindset. And you're like, what do you mean by mindset? I've had the question times like, is hard work a genetic thing? Like, are you born, to have the mindset just work hard? Is that a nature versus nurture thing? Is that something that you're brought up learning how to do, or were you just like born to do it? Regardless of it, it's a practice that needs to be nurtured on a day-to-day, and coming into the gym and being consistent with that, being committed to your goals. I call them like non-negotiables. I'm gonna set certain parameters or decisions in my life that I am going to stick to no matter what. Those are promises to myself. So with the genetics that I have, and as far as I've came in my life, it's been fueled by having that like relentless pursuit to achieving a certain goal. For me, it was becoming a professional athlete. And I didn't make it as a professional, I didn't make it as a football player. That wasn't in the cards to me. How things went then didn't work out, but I had this relentless pursuit to wanting to become a professional athlete. And I stumbled upon a sport that had exploited my genetics. I was able to fit into a place where I can actually be who I am and work as hard as I worked. And when it came down to it, that was a difference maker. What was the difference between me becoming a professional football player or a professional bodybuilder was this mindset. Waking up and deciding that no matter what you're born with, no matter what's going on in your life, you are dedicated to, and you're committed to making sure that you reach your goal. You're dedicated to your diet, dedicated to your training, dedicated to all those things that are gonna help move yourself forward. I remember playing football, and I didn't start one game. It was the first game. And I was an adult student, so I was pretty heartbroken when I had to sit and watch my team play. I remember going to the coach's office and I'm like, Coach, what do I have to do to not watch a game ever again? I want to be on the field. And he's like, work, X, Y, and Z. So what I did was I worked my butt off. I learned more than one position. I stayed longer and trained. I worked on my skills, things that I wasn't as good at. I was not good at catching before, but I worked my butt off to be able to be a good athletic running back catcher or receiver. And it played off in the end because I never watched a game again. I stayed on the field my entire football career. Was I the most gifted athlete on the team? I was not. I was one of the hardest, but probably the hardest worker on the team. And that comes to this. Everybody has to wake up and decide whether or not they want to commit themselves to whatever they're doing. And that's going to be the difference maker for you, is making sure that you commit to the goal. Whatever it is, you stick to it. That's your non-negotiable. I am going to reach this goal, and I'm going to do everything that's required to do that. Michael Jordan did it. Yeah, I guess that's a obvious, example, but let's be serious. He could have literally quit when he didn't make the team, but he worked his butt off, and then he ended up making the team, and he changed the game forever. There's those little stories that are everywhere that we have a little bit of that Michael Jordan in all of us. We have that potential. Remember, guys, there's a lot of players out there, professional athletes or potential professional athletes, that did not get to that place because they didn't have the mindset. So understand that the thing that might be keeping you from getting to your goal might not be your genetics at all, but more so your mindset. So change that thing first and then watch everything else around you start to flourish. Understand when mindset really plays the biggest role for you. It's not when you're just starting a set or just starting your journey. It's in those places that you get beat down a bit. For myself, I was second place, 2-3 times nationally in the Canadian National Bodybuilding Championships. I injured my back, I remember, in 2015, and sitting on stage in a lot of pain, and then taking a second place at that. All those things could have knocked me down. Every one of those instances in my life could have made me quit very easily. But for me, it was an opportunity of when to work even harder. It was at the point when I come off the stage and I get my second placing, and then I get my trophy and get back, and I sit there and be like, I still need work to do. That's where my head immediately went. It didn't go to a place of I need to quit, I'm not good enough, I failed. It was a place that showed me there's an opportunity for you to get better, then that's why you didn't get rewarded that placing. So I went back to the drawing board, worked my butt off, and literally 2 years later I became a professional athlete, professional bodybuilder. I won Mr. Canada. And I had so many instances in my life where I could have easily quit, and I didn't. And that's where mindset plays the biggest role in your journey. It's when it's getting hard that you need to push past that. It's when you think that there's a barrier or a roadblock that's up and you gotta just smash through it. That's the mindset you gotta have. Almost like that beast mode mindset. You just wanna keep going, keep smashing through no matter what, keep hitting through, and you're gonna get to your goal. Don't get to that point where you get knocked down once and you stop. Remember this, if you're running full speed ahead at your goals and you trip and fall, at least you're falling forward. Remember that. That's when the mindset plays the biggest part in your journey to getting the best overall physique, the best life that you can have.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
I can't emphasize staying in your lane any more than this. I understand you have the genetics you have, you're born with that. So accept it, and work hard at it. But during that time, make sure you're rewarding yourself. Acknowledging the fact that you've added an inch onto your arm or to your legs, that you might be able to squat a little more or bench a little more, that you can run a little longer or you can jump a little higher. It's a massive benefit that you acknowledge the things that you do and reward yourself, because it's a positive reinforcement. It's a great individual dopamine release that you've achieved something that you might have thought in the past that you couldn't achieve because you didn't have the right genetics. Give yourself a pat on the back. Stay off Instagram or those places as much as you can. Or if you're on there, make sure that you're following, pages that are gonna give you some self-empowerment and not discourage you. If your goal is to look like Chris Bumstead, you're gonna leave yourself discouraged. Look yourself in the mirror and paint a picture of what you want to create with what you have, and stick to that. And then when you start making those little bit of changes, you're rewarding yourself every single time. You're saying, good job, I look good. You're thanking yourself over and over and over again. In the end, genetics are gonna give you your starting point. Genetics will be like your blocks at the start of a race. That's what you're given. The hard work, the dedication, all the lead up before even starting. And then when you start, all that hard work and dedication, consistency, that self-improvement, that is what's gonna get you to where you need to go. And then that journey, we embrace it on a day-to-day, on a week-to-week. What you do now is gonna echo in the future. So be more conscious of what you're doing now and giving your all every single day, doing the best that you can do. You don't have to be the greatest. You don't have to be anybody else but yourself. An exhausted resource. Make little small goals. You can have those high achieving goals that you want. Maybe you want to put on 10 pounds in a couple years. But then you have those little low hanging fruit goals where I want to put on at least 2-3 pounds of muscle in a year. Or you want to lose X amount of weight in a couple months. Or you want to lift X amount of weight at the end of your mesocycle. Whatever it is, make sure you're rewarding yourself in that process, but don't get so caught up in the destination. Don't fantasize about where you're going. Fantasize about where you are right now and the best that you can do right now. And do the best that you can. And that's going to bring you the most amount of happiness that you can have for yourself. And in the end, that's all that matters. How happy you are. You know how it is. Iron sharpens iron. Progressive overload your life. In the meantime, keep gym chasing. Peace.